And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your AFL correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another interview in my series going around the states trying to find AFL fans from all of the 18 clubs. And today I have Mr. Adam Shaw. Adam, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Mr. Hess, Mr. Donald, whatever you want to go by.
Coach Hess, Donnie, any of those, as long as you don't call me late for dinner.
Very good, very good.
Awesome. So it's good. So where do I catch you from? Just to double check if I remember right.
I am from Tucson, Arizona.
Another Arizona, man. You guys love your footy out there in Arizona. That's pretty cool. Um,
So,
awesome. So I thought, kind of like we normally do, let's a little bit about yourself, kind of who you are, anything not related to footy at this present point.
well, I'm a young man. I'm 20 years old, just trying to, figure my way out. Trying to go back to school, trying to get some work, and, you know, uh, you know, stay on the right path.
Awesome, awesome. At least you know what you're up to. So I gotta ask another one from Tucson, Arizona. How did you find footy, and kind of how did you become a footy fan?
Well, it's kind of an accident. I was 15 and I was really, I looked up. I was looking up rugby highlights on Google, and you know how it has those, the recommendations on the bar right there, and it said Australian football. I mean, and I asked myself, is that different? I mean, isn't I just thought, every time I heard the word Australian football or the phrase of Australian football, I just thought, isn't that just rugby? It turns out it's a very, very different sport.
As I've joked with many people, I said it's soccer and rugby had a mutant child, but don't worry, you're not the first person to ever say that. In fact, most of the people that I talk to about footy, almost the first question I get almost every time is that rugby? And I don't mean to be mean most of the time, but I go, did I say rugby? And I'm not trying to be mean, but it's kind of like,
Yeah.
no, it's not rugby. It's a completely different sport. So
Oh yeah.
so that's interesting. So you're the second person that I've talked to that checking it out on YouTube and it out being kind of how you got into the sport. So I got to ask,
Mhm.
okay, huge footy fan. So who is your club?
My club is the uh, Carlton Blues.
Good old Navy Blues. Good old Navy Blues. It's
Yes,
hard to
sir. Yes,
find.
sir.
It's hard to find some of the Carlton Blues fans. They're kind of hard to find, but
Yep.
it's a pleasure to meet a good old Navy Blues fan. So going from that, so a fan of the Carlton Blues. So I got to ask, how is your fandom? Are you a diehard? Are you kind of catch them when you can? I mean, you kind of express to me your fandom of your Blues.
I catch the highlights. I watch the Blue Abroad, the Carlton fan channels. I watch the Collingwood game, but I wouldn't say like a diehard. Like I don't watch every game, but if I can afford to watch a game, I'll watch a game.
Awesome. So going from that, I got to ask, who is your favorite Blue currently? And have you dove into the history, Carlton being one of the older clubs in the competition? Have you dove into the history and maybe found an old Blue that you've come to like?
The current Blue, I really like. Oh man, it's kind of hard because I really like Patrick Cripps and I like Eddie Betts. Um, in terms of past Blues, Anthony Koutafidis comes to mind. He's a big, very active in the Carlton community, especially on social media. Um, Steven Silvani comes to mind, and he not recently, but he's definitely one of my favorites to look up. Watch highlights of. Great player.
Yeah, and just so much experience with the Silvani family with the Carlton Blues. It was kind of hard seeing one of the younger Silvanis being left off their list recently, but the
Hmm.
Silvani name is almost synonymous with the Navy Blue, so that's really cool. So going off that, thoughts on this year? How you thought the Blues did? Was it above expectations, below? Kind of what were your thoughts on this year's Blues team and kind of their performances?
I just thought we as a club needed to take a step forward, no matter what that looked like, whether we were winning ugly, whether we were winning good. And I think we had a mix of that really. You watch the North Melbourne game when we won by 7. That's a really ugly game. And then you watch games like the Bulldogs when we put 100 on them. You know, we there's good footy, and then there's rough but winning footy.
Hmm. Yeah, it was kind of one of those. Carlton had that kind of Jekyll and Hyde type of season. You have that great game against Frio where they kick the late goal and then they get
Yep.
nipped by Port at one time. Carlton was just one of those that's just like they got stung at the worst possible times. So it was kind of
Mhm.
one of those where it's like I think if a couple of those games go the other way, like if they somehow win that Port game, or maybe they win some of those games a little bit later in the year when they just kind of like
Mhm.
they seem like they hit a wall. I think
Yeah.
they really had a shot to play finals, and I think with some of the off-season moves, I think this is a club that definitely I could see in the finals next year. So kind of piggybacking off that, what have you been keeping an eye on the off-season? What are your thoughts,
And
or is it kind of one of those you just kind of well, I'll pay attention once the season gets started?
well, I've done my best to pay attention. Adam Sod's a really good inclusion. Zach Williams, great players, and I think Lachlan Fogarty's a really underrated signing too. You know, be somebody around the ruck.
Oh yeah, all three of them I think are amazing additions, and then the fact that you add Williams and Sod, they're two of the faster players in the league. So
Hmm.
Carlton goes from big with Patty Cripps now to a little bit of speed. So I think Carlton is
Yeah,
definitely one
that's.
of those teams to look out for next season.
Hmm.
Definitely impressed with their off season.
Hmm.
Their draft class looks pretty good too.
Hmm.
Not exactly not star studded, not top 10 picks, but definitely solid guys that I think could definitely
Yeah.
make an impact soon. So swinging from that, um, I always like kind of finding out. I'm a big proponent on women's footy. So AFLW, have you kept any eye on it? Is it something that you'd eventually like to keep an eye on? I know that the Blues do have their own team. Unlike myself with Sydney, I don't have a women's team to support right now. So I'm kind of consider myself a free agent. I'm kind of an open fan at this present point of AFLW. So thoughts on AFLW? Do you keep an eye on it? Are you going to? Is it something that you'll eventually kind of be as involved as the men's game?
Well, I wouldn't say as involved as the men's game. To be completely honest, I haven't kept up with it at all. Um, I do know of Danny Marshall, a native Arizonan, who's one of the better players in their league, but she plays for the Ducks.
That's been the most common answer from a lot of the Americans. If they aren't watching their team, they're watching Danny Marshall and the doggies. So I
Mhm.
think I'm hoping she gets to hear these podcasts because I think she's getting a lot of shout outs, which is really, really awesome. I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, maybe I can get a hold of her
Mhm.
and have her do a little quick interview, hopefully before the season gets going, before she gets too super busy. So kind of wrapping up here, and one of my favorite questions to ask for most of these fans, just because it's always interesting hearing the variety, is favorite game you've ever watched. Is it a Carlton game or is it somebody else? Doesn't have to be a Carlton game, but I'd love to know favorite game of footy you've ever watched.
I haven't watched too many games to be completely honest, but one that just springs to mind from the highlights and just was the Geelong game this year when we went down there and we beat them. That was the first one of the season. That was huge. Like this can kickstart our season. We can go to finals. Well, not how that ended, but it really got the fan base going.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun one. And seeing Eddie Betts, even as experienced as Eddie Betts is, for him to be able to lay that tackle in the midfield and just seeing him him give his all effort to help win that game. That was definitely a fun game to watch. I got a kick out of that one too. And I've always had a soft spot for the Blues just because they've been through so much hard spots. So I may be a Swans fan for most of the time, but I definitely have to say that the good old Navy Blues are a team that I get a kick out of watching, and I see some good things coming from them in the next few seasons, definitely with their young core. The biggest thing is they got to keep guys like Cripps there. They got to
Yeah.
continue to add, and hopefully Sod and Williams make an impact. And honestly, I think that the Carlton could be knocking on the door for the finals this year. I'm not sure if they're finals contenders because there's so many good teams at the top of the ladder, but the constant step forward is definitely something I think Carlton is doing. So um,
Mm,
Adam, this has been an awesome conversation. It's fun meeting another fellow Blues fan. I know being
mm.
a younger Blues fan, um, I know sometimes, have you looked into the Watch AFL app at all?
Well, I have used it, but I only used it for the Collingwood game this season. But it's not something I can just throw a money hat right now. So
I can.
um, in the future, yeah, I'll definitely give myself a year, the year membership and watch more footy. Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely look. Definitely, when you get a chance, look into that international membership. That is definitely,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely worth it when you can afford it. I know things are kind of nuts at this time,
Mm-hmm.
sometime, but reach out to me. I have an idea for you. Okay.
Alrighty, I will.
All righty, sir. It's been a pleasure. You have yourself a good time. Have a good day, the rest of your evening, and I will talk to you again soon. And that has been it for me, ladies and gentlemen. You have a nice evening.